buy books, don't buy cameras. Just get a camera, a simple camera, because the camera is just a tool. We get lost in all the gear, and I mean, it becomes like a fashion. How many Leicas do you have, and how many this and how many that? I mean, it's all great, but the camera will not take your picture. It's your brain, it's your heart, it's your mind, it's your soul.
So welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Eyeshot 50mm. And today we're sitting down with Margarita Mavromichalis. Margarita is a Greek photographer working between street and documentary photography with the visual language shaped by human presence, gestures, and time. Margarita is also a winner in the series category of the Eyeshot Open Call 2025 and the author of our limited edition book, still available for pre-order until June 30th, of Street Weather. Margarita, thank you so much for being with me, and welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to have a lovely conversation with you.
Thank you. And for everybody who's watching, I just want to leave a little message to keep liking, keep subscribing, and keep commenting, because with just a small click to you, it means the world for us to keep bringing you exclusive content of street and documentary photography. And since a couple of months, all our interviews are available as podcasts on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. So Margarita, again, I guess we can just start immediately. And my very first question for you is, who is Margarita Mavromichalis, according to Margarita Mavromichalis?
That's a complicated question. I was actually born in Italy, in Venice, and spent my life traveling quite a bit, not by choice. It was my father's career that took me from one country to another. I ended up continuing that journey for much longer than I would have expected. Photography came into my life at a very young age because my father was a very avid photographer. And so I grew up with someone who always had a camera with him. And I think this is where I got the bug. But my family was very traditional and very strict in many ways, and they did not really encourage me to follow my heart in the world of arts, because they always believed that, it's a tough world to navigate. And they're absolutely right, it is. So I ended up becoming an interpreter, translator. I speak 5 languages. And but this is something I never really enjoyed doing. When my kids grew up and were ready to go to university, I decided that I had enough, and I really wanted to follow my passion, which has always been photography. I have photographed for a very, very long time. When I was a teenager, I had a dark room at home. And I spent many long hours playing with film and developing and experiencing the wonder of photography. But anyway, when I moved to New York in 2009, I decided that was it. No more excuses. It was the perfect place to follow your dreams and your heart. And I enrolled at the International Center of Photography. And that's where my life changed. And I think I could never look back. It's really given me wings. It's given me a voice. It's filled my life with amazing people and experiences. And I would not change it for anything in the world.
Okay. And for those who may not know your work very well, how would you describe your type of photography?
From the very beginning, my interest always was people. I felt the constant need to have people in my frame, because for me, the place is made by the pulse of the people. Without people, a place for me has no soul. As much as I love architecture and I love landscape and those genres of photography are extremely difficult, I don't by any means underestimate them. I feel that to me, an image without a person lacks somehow some kind of soul and dynamism. So from the very beginning, I was attracted to anything that I could include a person in. So I took a lot of classes in portraiture, which I still love and pursue. I took street photography, which I also absolutely adore. I find it extremely challenging, and documentary. I worked for over 4 or 5 years documenting the refugee crisis on the island of Lesvos here in Greece from 2014 to 2018, and that was maybe the most difficult project I've ever done. It was almost traumatic. So I pursue all three because I love all three. I don't know if I can put a label on myself as having one particular style. But this is really what I love to do.
Great. You've also, as you said, and I've been researching as well, you've lived in very different countries, you've seen cities, people, as we were saying. How much do you think living in different places in the world has shaped the way you look and the way you photograph?
I think having had such experiences since I was born has made me a person that is extremely accepting of others and very understanding. You could throw me in any country in the world, I would feel at home, which is good and bad because I don't really have roots anywhere. And that's another subject which we don't want to get into now. But I think that it has helped me a lot being more open and more attentive to the cultures that I photograph.
Okay, great. And I think we'll talk about this also a little bit later because I have a couple of questions regarding this. There's something that I always feel like it's important for photographers, which are their backgrounds, as we're talking right now, their experiences, but it's also for me very important the type of inspirations and people that we meet, or the artists and the photographers that in this case have inspired us. So my question for you is, which photographers or artists more in general do you think have shaped your way of doing photography or influenced the way you see the world, if that is something that has happened to you?
My very first teachers at the International Center of Photography was Harvey Stein, who's a well-known American photographer, and he focuses also on portraits, street portraiture, and street photography. And I took quite a few of his classes. And besides him being a very open and very generous person, he was an excellent teacher. And he really pushed me to get a wide angle and to get close. And I think that without him, my style would have been very different today. Because believe it or not, I was a very, 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 very shy person. Now, I mean, it's a different story, but I would have never dared to photograph the way I do today if it wasn't for him and pushing me so much. Other than Harvey, I have to tell you that I'm a big fan of most, well-known classics like Henri Cartier-Bresson, and I love the humor of Elliot Erwitt because I love humor in photography, so that to me is very special. And of course, Gary Winogrand, who's an all-time classic, and I mean, probably the most amazing street photographer. He had a feeling and he knew how to fill the frame and to tilt his frames in a way that, nobody in his time did that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you think finding your own style is something that happens for a photographer naturally, or is something that is deliberately built? How did it go for you?
I think that it comes with shooting, it comes with time, it comes with practice. You slowly start developing your own signature and your own style. I don't think that you have a clarity of vision from the very beginning. It's something that comes along the way. For some people, it comes faster than others. Some people never find it. Some people find it extremely quickly. But I do believe that it comes with experience and shooting.
With a lot of practice.
With a lot of practice. And also, I mean, every time that younger photographers ask me for advice, to me, what is important is to get a visual education, is to study important photographers, see how they did, how they shot, why they shot the way they did, and try to understand that. And by understanding that, you can actually start shaping your own vision. Um, and that helps in developing your own voice. Nowadays, we are so inundated with photography. Every day there's, millions. If you can spend your day scrolling the internet, but the truth is that, quality of the images we often see is very mediocre. So people should not try to learn from those images. They have to study people who have gained a reputation for a reason.
Absolutely agreed. As we were saying before, you've moved, you've tried, and you're still try different genre. You don't like labels. I think I can say that. Perfect. You don't like
I
labels.
like to call myself a photographer and not a street photographer.
Or a documentary photographer. Absolutely. You blur the lines basically, and I really like that. So, but my question is, in your view, then, when do you think a street photograph stop being streets and begins to become something else, like a documentary shot? Because sometimes there is this little debate that street photography is more about aesthetics, right? And documentary is about informing. So street is art and documentary is information. What do you think? Where do you see the line, if there's one?
The line is extremely fine, and it creates debates. And we have the tendency these days to create categories and subcategories and more categories, and it complicates things and it creates animosity and division between people. I think for no reason, but to me, a documentary photography is an image that shows the world as it is without trying to give a particular message. Street photography, to me, a good street photograph is a photograph that is less obvious and will create more questions than give answers. It is an image that will capture your eye and will capture your attention and will provoke you in some ways. This is the distinction that I make. And to me, a good street photograph is not about telling a story. It's about starting a story.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Which is not easy to do, but when we succeed, it's very satisfying.
And connecting to this, do you think today there is too much attention in street photography as a visual impact and not maybe enough on complexity then?
There's a bit of both. I think there is a bit of both. People look for impact because we need instant gratification. I think social media has played a big role in this. We go on Instagram and the first thing you want is to have hundreds of likes and comments. And what are the images that will create, that result are images that have that impact. The more quiet images, the more lyrical images, go often, unfortunately, unnoticed on Instagram, on social media. Outside of that, it's a different story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is one thing that I've researched that I really find interesting about your photography is that you have described your approach as non-aggressive towards your subjects and towards what you shoot. Is it possible today to make intense street photography without being invasive in the scene?
I think so. I think that, if you are patient enough and you don't look for instant results and you stick to what you try to achieve, you become invisible. I photograph with the D50. it's a big camera. I mean, most people say, my God, how can you walk around with this? I'm used to it. I mean, it's an extension to my hand, to my brain, to my heart. I can work that camera with my eyes closed. People don't see me. Most people don't see me. That's because I stand around. I'm patient. I try to, of course, I am aggressive. At times I am aggressive, I have to say. Some images, you can't take them unless you are aggressive. But there is aggressiveness and aggressiveness. You can be aggressive in a good way and you can be aggressive in a bad way. I always acknowledge my subjects. I always thank them afterwards, of course, if they forgive me. I see often photographers, who take images right in people's faces and turn their backs and just leave. I find that rude. I could not do that. I think that, people give us something, whether by choice or not, we have to give something back to them. And at least a thank you is the least that we can do. So I do acknowledge my subjects. I respect them very much. And I think, being kind takes you a long way.
Absolutely. So I totally agree with that. And have you ever made a strong photograph and then decided not to use it because it didn't feel right for this kind of reasons we have been discussing?
I have a few of those that I would never show, but I did take them. In retrospect, sometimes I wondered if I should or shouldn't have taken them. I did take them because we often can't help ourselves, I mean, it's a passion and it's that force that keeps us going. And we often take images that afterwards you say, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have taken that. But the important thing is what you decide to do with the image
Afterwards, absolutely.
and how you decide to use it, if you use it.
And how much do you think does a photograph change, if it does, in the moment that the subject becomes aware that is being watched?
It changes completely. And that's why, so many people say why you should ask permission first. Well, if you do ask permission, I mean, the whole moment is gone. Yes, people become aware, and I mean, whether they realize it or not, their attitude changes. Their expressions change. Everything becomes staged suddenly, To me, the stage is like a theater stage where um, the people have an unscripted role and they're free to perform the way they want to. From the minute you stop them and you talk to them, they get a script and they feel that they have to perform a certain way. So, it's day and night.
Do you think the idea then, we touched a bit about this before, but do you think the idea of the invisible photographer then is actually real or partially a myth?
I think it is real. It is real because so many times I've taken images of people who had no idea, and I was right in their face. They had no idea that I took their image. And at times, they did manage to see me, but I had already taken their image, so they didn't have time to react. I think both.
Okay, great. Yes, because there is this debate, right? Being present, not being present. How do we hide ourselves without interrupting the scene? But a photographer is always part of the scene in some ways, right? In certain measures or levels in that sense.
The photographer is always part of the image. Don't they say that that an image says more about the photographer than the subject himself?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, the way you photograph says a lot about who you are, really,
Absolutely. So I totally agree.
in many ways.
Yes, I was very interested in your work about the refugees in Lesbos, the one we were talking about before, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about it. How did you deal with the tension and the urgency to bear witness on one side, and the need, I feel, to respect the vulnerability of the subjects that you were photographing in such a delicate context?
Very delicate. Look, I mean, that crisis was really huge back in 2014, and I had just moved back to Greece from New York then, as it was starting and developing. And for some reason, I thought, I could see all these scenes on TV They were shocking. And I felt I needed to be there to witness it myself, to see what was going on. Those trips they were extremely difficult. When I came back and was going through my work and my images, there were days that I was just crying, reliving the scenes. And while I was there were days that I just couldn't photograph because it was so traumatic. But the camera helps in many ways. It creates a shield, between you and the drama that is unfolding. And somehow you try to protect yourself from it. But I felt that I needed to be there, and I felt that I was welcome to be there by the refugees. They were so happy to be photographed. They were so happy to tell their story. They wanted the world to see what, they had suffered and the extreme harshness of our humanity. And they were grateful. And to me, it was one of the most humbling experiences in my life. Those people who literally traveled with a backpack with all their belongings in that little bag, they were better than I was. They made me feel so small, so small. They traveled with a little bag of nuts, and because I photographed them, they would ask me to join them and share those nuts with them. I mean, if I were in their position, I wouldn't be that generous. Honestly, I wouldn't. So for me, it was more than shooting. It was a life experience. It was witnessing a chapter of our humanity that I'm really not proud of. And unfortunately, it goes on and on and on. And what I did actually, because that work to me was important, I did a big exhibition of the work in London, and I gave all the proceeds of the exhibition to the coast guards of Lesvos because I wanted to support them. They were the people who were really dealing with the heavy, heavy stuff, pulling bodies out of the water every day. I mean, they had a hard time. And Greece was going through a very difficult financial crisis then. So their means were really limited. And I felt, that I needed to help. So, we have to try and use.
Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. It's totally fine.
We have to try and use whatever means we have to, as I said before, to give back.
Absolutely. And how did this project started? Like, how did you gain access? How was your field research before going there? How did it went along?
Lesvos is a small island, and because it was the biggest point of entry in Greece, I decided to go there. At the very beginning, everything was very open. The camp was open, the beaches where the rafts were arriving, they were open. The NGOs had just started arriving, so everything was pretty unorganized, I would say. So I had no problem photographing, or I didn't need permission to photograph. As the years went by, everything changed, of course. And then in order to enter the camps, you needed permission and you needed to explain why you were doing what you were doing. And they were very strict about it.
Because it's always interesting to see how a documentary photographer in this project that you were doing, of course, gains access and talks to the subject. It's always very delicate, as we were saying before. That's very interesting, and thank you for sharing that. Now I want to switch gears a little bit more, and I wanted to go because, as I was saying before, Margarita is the winner in the series category of the Eyeshot Open Call 2025. And my very first question is, what made you decide to participate in the open call? What was the driving force with your project, of course, Breathing Pavements, which is incredible?
Thank you so much. I had submitted to Eyeshot a few years ago again. Then I went through a period of time where I was just focusing on photographing, and I had stopped submitting work to all the competitions. I took a step back for 3 or 4 years actually. And last summer was the first time when I received one of your emails that I always love receiving. And it was 1 day left or 2 days left. And I thought, let's do it this year. And so I sent in, that body of work that I really love very much. It was very thoughtfully selected. And I was happy, that you enjoyed it.
And what was the work conceived as a series already at the beginning, or it became one later on? Not in the competition, but in your construction of it.
In series, I always like to find images that connect the one with the other. So my memory is not that good, but I don't forget my images, thankfully. So as soon as I see an image, I know I immediately can visualize which image would actually fit with it. So I sort of try to organize my series that way.
And what advice would you give to a photographer thinking about applying to a contest or a photography contest in general from your own experience?
I think honestly, it's the best thing that they can do for themselves. First of all, okay, not all the contests will lead you to somewhere, but regardless what the result is, the fact that you are forced to revisit your work, to think about your selections, and to put work together, I think that exercise alone is extremely valuable. So competitions are great. If you win or if you get a distinction, it's certainly a bonus, and it's rare that it happens for most of us. Some competitions, of course, they will give you a pat on the back and will say, congratulations, well done. Others, you will win a prize. In your case, I mean, I was very fortunate to be able to work with you on a book. But just the fact alone that it puts you into this mindset of digging into your work, I think is a very important tool to also mature as a photographer and to see what you have, what you're missing, what you're doing right or wrong. And also the results, say something. If you get acknowledged, it means that you're doing something right. If you don't, it means that you have to dig deeper and work harder. Also make better selections. Some people have a very difficult time selecting. They don't select the right images. Selection is very difficult.
Also because there's the emotional, right, closeness for a photographer.
Just because, you risked your life taking a picture doesn't mean that this picture is worth anything. But it's worth something to you, but it doesn't mean that it's worth something to the rest of the world. So we have to be able to take that distance from our work, and it becomes easier with time.
Absolutely. With practice and leaving the ego outside, for sure.
Exactly.
Sometimes it happens, but it's normal. We all need that as well.
Absolutely.
In street weather, instead, the images comes from very different contests, yet I feel like the work very much feels unified, like throughout your whole archive and your selection. I feel like it's very much unified. For you, what is the thread that holds everything together in your photography?
The thread is that we are all the same. We are all so similar to each other. We like to think that we are all different and that some of us are better than others, but we are all the same. The human being is the same everywhere. Doesn't matter the nationality, doesn't matter the economic background. We have so much in common. And in all these countries where I travel, I see the same reactions, the same habits, because we're all human. Actually, and to me, this is first of all very interesting to witness, and also, think it comes together in the images.
Absolutely, absolutely. And street weather is also, I believe, a very strong title as well for a project.
Great title because it depicts really what the street is. There are good days, bad days. It can be energetic. It can be very quiet. It can be anything and everything at the same time. So,
That
yeah,
was exactly what I wanted to ask you. What does it mean to you? But you already answered it.
yes, absolutely. I think the title is brilliant.
Great. And what do you hope through your work the viewers will get from looking at the photographs of street weather? What do you hope they will feel?
I hope that they will feel that it is a body of work that comes from the heart, because it really comes from the heart. Hopefully, it will put a smile on their face from time to time, because whenever I manage to create anything humorous in my images without being offensive to anyone, I like it, because I feel that humor is a very important ingredient in our life. Without it, it would be very sad. And I hope they will see something different, something fresh. I don't know how fresh it is, but a different voice.
Absolutely. And you mentioning this humorous that is definitely part of your photography. How do you handle this tension that you were just talking about, right? Between being humorous,
I look for it.
you look for
I
it.
look for it. I look for it. When I go out to shoot, I never go out with a specific idea in my head, because I feel that if I do that, it will be limiting. I will miss things that I would have seen otherwise. So I like to let myself to anything that unfolds around me, but whatever I can catch in a funny way, I mean, I will really try to catch it.
Perfect. Very interesting. I feel like this definitely compromises, like gathers everything that is inside the book. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this kind of like contemporary photography hot takes in that sense. And I want to know a little bit more about how you feel. What do you think? So, the very first question is: do you think, is there anything about contemporary photography that you feel that bores you, that is overrated or exaggerated, that you really cannot stand?
We did, we did. No, yes, yes, it is. The trends tend to become boring after a while. They're fun at the beginning, and yes, they give you new ideas, but I feel that they are superficial in many ways. So if you stick to just that, I think you won't go very far.
Absolutely. And do you think most photographers are actually photographing ideas they already believe in rather than discovering perhaps new ways of shooting?
It depends how adventurous you are. Some people are not very adventurous. Some people, they will find something that they feel comfortable with and they will stick to that for the rest of their life. Other people are more unsettled in their ways, and they constantly either are unhappy or constantly need something new and something more refreshing. So they keep looking for something better, something else, something different, I don't know. But I feel that these people will create more interesting work.
That's the thing, because it's always like we are what we live, what we experience. We are our backgrounds, we are our inspirations. And sometimes it's like almost impossible in a way to not be unconsciously repeating certain photographs, certain iconic photographs, certain silhouettes, certain things.
Wasn't it Ansel Adams who said that you don't photograph just with a camera? You put into your photography all the books you have read, all the music you have heard, all the people you have loved. And it's so true.
It's a combination of everything. Yeah.
Because, I mean, that makes you who you are, really. And yes, in a way, when we all start photography or anything for that matter, we all get inspired. Using the word copy, I think is not nice, because in a way, yes, we copy, but I would more use the word inspiration. Because what is inspiration? Inspiration is when you see something that you like, and that gives you a spark to either repeat it or to make your own version of it. I think, it's very legitimate and pretty much everybody does it at the beginning. You see you admire some photographers, you study their work. As I said, that this is a good thing to do. And then you try to emulate because they inspire you. So you try to emulate what has given you that tickle in your stomach, when you see an image that says something to you. I mean, it's for a reason. So it's not copying. It's inspiration. And I think inspiration is the best thing we can do to each other. And I think we all photographers inspire each other in many ways. We're all different. No matter how much you try to make the same image as somebody else, you will never, ever,
Get it the same.
never. It's never the same.
Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to say something wrong, Picasso used to say that copying is the best art in the world, and he became a huge and iconic painter. So absolutely agree with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Speaking of social media, instead, we touched this a little bit. There is this trend on social media today about showing the making of a photo, the behind the scene, the POV, and it has become, I guess, a key part of the engagement on social media. It's something going very strong. Do you think this kind of content can change how we see a photograph or how we see a genre some way? And is it showing the making of a photograph, how photographer behave before shooting, like changing also their behavior towards?
I don't really enjoy watching those videos because to me it's a setup and it doesn't necessarily happen this way all the time. And why do we need to see how someone is shooting? You should go out and shoot naturally the way it comes from your soul. When I teach workshops or photography, I want to let people shoot on their own because that's how they will be able to develop their own style. You have to make mistakes. Can't be, I mean, to take someone by the hand and show them and tell them what to shoot, how to shoot, to me, you're not doing them a service. People have to make their mistakes. And it's by making mistakes that you really learn and grow. And some of the best photography is made by mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Some mistakes are brilliant.
Yes, it's always just hard to understand this concept, right? People always, I guess we live in such a fast world that we want, as you said before, immediate satisfaction and immediate rewards and immediate results, that really those things don't go together, I feel, especially in photography or in street photography, that it's also very spontaneous, the moment and everything, the decisive moment. A final question regarding social media, because as you know, we live in such a digitalized world and technology is such part of our interaction, which on one side is great, which has been connected people from different parts of the world. On the other is a little bit. Do you think that social media have made photography more visible or, I don't know, more predictable or more, I don't know, did they help some ways in certain aspects perhaps or not?
It's a very difficult question. 'Cause in a way, I feel that it has helped because it has opened people up to photography more, and, together with that, I would say that cell phones have helped a lot. Because of the cameras in the cell phones, now everybody has a cell phone, everybody takes pictures, whereas before you needed to have a camera, and it was much more difficult, so now it's accessible to everybody. Social media, of course, is keeping that interest alive, but not necessarily in a good way. So it does help, but it doesn't at the same time. You have to be very careful how you approach it and how you use it.
Absolutely, especially also when photographing others as well, right? Like it's not so visible.
Of course, absolutely. I lived in Tokyo for a few years, and there all the cell phones make a noise when you take a picture.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. So you're always aware of
Always
like,
Always aware.
Closing up on this instead, I want to know, because you teach workshop, you're a mentor in that sense, you've learned a lot of things and you're sharing your knowledge as well. And I wanted to ask you, what are your top five photographic, let's say, or habits that matter most in your own work?
I like to keep my technical stuff very simple. I find that today's cameras tend to be overly complicated and offer way too much that we don't need. So I try to find the settings that really work for me and stick to those settings. Of course, depending on what I want to do. For my regular daily street photography, I have some settings that I use all the time and that work for me. So whenever I'm out, I don't want to have to think about it. I want to think about the content of my image and not the technical stuff. A very important advice, I think, is for people to watch their backgrounds. I think backgrounds are extremely important in photography. They can make or break an image. So whenever I see an interesting background, I will try to use it and create an image around that. What else? Techniques.
Or habits that you have, I guess, that you look for?
I tell you, I am very, very, very open. I don't sort of let things come to me. But I don't know that I have any specific habits, to be honest.
And what do you think a photographer should have, whether in terms of tools or ways of thinking, when they go out shooting? Like, what are some things that every photographer should have with him, or with her, of course, when they're out, or being aware of in their surroundings?
You're out, all you need is a camera. I would say a few batteries, that's for sure. Memory cards, good shoes. You need one lens and a fixed lens. This is how I shoot. I shoot wide angle. I'm on a 24 all the time. So I think that learning to shoot with one lens is only a good thing. Zoom lenses don't do you any service. I think they make life a lot more complicated. You need very, very few things other than a camera, batteries, and I used to use flash at some point. I don't anymore. So I definitely don't carry a flash around, and I don't carry a second camera with me. I always have a second camera in my room or back home or wherever, but I never really carry it with me because I want to be as light as possible.
Interesting, very interesting. And in terms of this, it's a little different in terms of post production and post editing. In that sense, how much post production do you do? Do you try to keep your photo as raw as possible, or what do? Because sometimes there are, I feel, a lot of photographers that unfortunately ruin their photograph, yeah, over post production, which is a shame.
I agree with you. I'm a firm believer. Imagine I don't use Photoshop. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I've never learned it and I don't want to learn it. I always believe that an image has to be taken correctly in camera. If an image needs to be worked for more than a few minutes, then it means that there's something wrong with it. And you cannot create an image with post processing. So to me, post processing means that I will edit the brightness. I will maybe add some saturation. I will maybe crop the the um, the edges of the image because I feel that an image needs to be clean, and having clean edges is very important. I would basically do whatever I would do in the darkroom, and that's all. I'm not I don't believe that good photography needs more processing than that. We were talking about categories before. I think there is a category for all that processing that goes on, for some photographers. It's a different thing. It's a different thing. To me, it's another genre of photography.
Yes, like manipulation kind of things. It's another, as far as it's stated, of course, that also is very important. Everybody can do whatever they prefer. Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you then, what for you makes a photograph truly alive then, if you would have to summarize everything we've said so far?
It's an image that it's an image that would stay with you, that people will not forget 2 minutes later. It's an image that will make you pause and wonder. It's an image that will put your imagination to the test. This is an image that to me is alive. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. It does. It does. Absolutely. I wanted to have your point of view, your POV, your point of view from everything we've said so far. A very last question I wanted to ask you. If you had to give a piece of advice to the younger Margarita just starting photography, what would you say to her?
Buy books, don't buy cameras. Just get a camera, a simple camera, because the camera is just a tool. We get lost in all the gear, and I mean, it becomes like a fashion. How many Leicas do you have, and how many this and how many that? I mean, it's all great, but the camera will not take your picture. It's your brain, it's your heart, it's your mind, it's your soul. So try to feel, and if you manage to feel, that feeling will come through your images. Um, just, study, find your passion, find what you're interested in, what you want to find out more about, because photography is educational in my point of view. It opens us to many things that we would have not have access to otherwise. Find what you're interested in and just shoot, 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 shoot. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. And nobody was born perfect, and nobody is perfect.
Exactly.
Even the best photographers are not perfect. They all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And we only put our best work forward. We never show our bad images, and God knows how many we have. We all have bad work. And, this is how it is. It's life. We're humans, we can only do our best. I mean, to me, hard work and shoot, 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 and get a visual education.
Margarita, thank you so much for this amazing interview. Like, I feel like I really discovered such depth of human that it's truly admirable. And I'm so excited about this book we're doing together. So thank you again for being with us.
That's very kind. I thank you for having me. For us photographers, it's a tough world out there. And, whenever we get the chance to get our voice heard, and thanks to platforms and people like you, I mean, we can only be grateful.
Thank
But
you so much.
you. No, thank you.
Really. And again, a final message to everybody who's just watching us to keep liking, keep subscribing, keep commenting, because you guys are what's keep us alive again. And we thank you so much. And don't forget that Street Weather, it's available for pre-order until June 30th. So go and check it out. It's beautiful work. Thank you again, Margarita. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Lucrezia. Lovely to talk to you.